our Prime Minister for the affirmative. Mr. Prime Minister, you may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, mediators and opposition. Thank you for the opportunity to present our case today. Leadership has shaped nations, institutions, and entire civilizations throughout history. One pattern stands out. Men have held the majority of leadership positions across politics, business, the military, and sports. This outcome is not accidental. It reflects centuries of societal structures and expectations that position men at the forefront of major decisions. For generations, men were placed in roles that demanded strategic thinking, crisis management, and responsibility for communities and nations. These opportunities allowed men to develop leadership experience on a broad scale, while women were historically restricted from these same roles. As a result, men built a long-standing foundation of leadership practice, giving them a continuing advantage in leadership representation today. Men have also widely expected to take risks, assert authority, and lead large groups effectively. These expectations created a leadership style that is straightforward, confident, and result-driven. In environments that demand quick decisions, boardrooms, battlefields, and political arenas, these traits are not helpful, they are essential. This is why across leadership styles, this is why the leadership styles fits what high stakes situations require. From a young age, boys are pushed towards behavior associated with leadership. They are encouraged to speak up, take initiative, compete aggressively, and step forward rather than step back. These early experiences build confidence, and in leadership, confidence is the first quality people follow. By adulthood, many men are socially conditioned to lead, and society is conditioned to accept them as leaders. Whether intentional or not, this cultural reinforcement prepares men more directly and consistently for leadership roles. Leadership networks have also historically favored men. For generations, men have been mentored, trained, and supported by established leaders in politics, business, and the military. These networks did not just open doors, they built pathways for men to rise into influential positions. Someone who has been part of leadership systems for centuries naturally develops stronger instincts for navigating them. That long term familiarity gives men a significant advantage. Let us be clear, acknowledging men's historical advantage in leadership does not mean overlooking the growing impact of women. Women today are rising rapidly in leadership roles and proving their capabilities across many fields. However, this progress does not erase the long-standing reality that leadership systems, expectations, and norms were shaped around male experiences for centuries. The foundation still influences how leadership is defined and recognized today. Because men have been molded by these systems for generations, they often fit more readily into the leadership traits society has traditionally valued. As more women continue to enter these roles, the definition of effective leadership may evolve, but the historical advantage men carry remains significant in understanding current leadership patterns. In this debate, we will highlight two central points: the alignment with traditional leadership archetypes and expectations, and the cultural conditioning and how men fit traditional and Christ-driven leadership expectations. As we present our case today, we encourage you to look beyond isolated examples and instead consider the broader patterns that it has shaped leadership over the centuries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Madam Timekeeper, you could tell me how much time that Prime Minister has remaining?
50 seconds.
50 seconds. Okay, no problem. Mr. Prime Minister, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I have anything to add.
No problem. Thank you. You'll now have a 1 minute intermission and we'll resume subsequently.
Time is up.
Thank you very much, Madam Timekeeper. We now resume with the opposition leader against. You may begin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and members of the House, today the Leader of Opposition rises firmly to reject the motion that men make better leaders than women. This claim is not only outdated, but it also lacks factual support and ignores decades of global research. The opposition stance is simple. Leadership ability is not determined by gender. In many fields, women match or exceed men in leadership performance, effectiveness, and outcome. The opposition will rely on evidence, logic, and the realities of modern leadership. The opposition will establish three major premises to dismantle this motion. Premise 1. Leadership effectiveness is not gender-based and women often outperform men. The Honorable Opposition begins with the facts. A major global leadership study from Harvard Business Review states that over 84,000 leaders and 1.5 million subordinate ratings found that women scored higher than men in most leadership competencies, including honesty, teamwork, collaboration, and integrity. Honorable members, this is not opinion, this is data. If men were naturally better leaders, these results would not exist. Yet they do across thousands of workplaces, multiple industries, and several continents. And beyond the data, we have real-world leaders whose performances disproves the government's claim, like Angela Merkel, former Chancellor of Germany that led for 16 years with stability, intelligence, and global respect. Premise 2. Women's leadership style strengthens organizations and produces long-term success. Madam Speaker, the opposition now turns to how women lead and why their leadership style consistently produces stronger and more suitable results. Women are repeatedly shown to excel in transformational leadership, a leadership style proven to improve cooperation morale and ethical culture. This is supported by hardcore data. A 2025 corporate leadership performance review found that companies led by women had a 12% higher employee retention, as employees rated female leaders more effective at communication and conflict resolution. And honorable members, we see these findings reflected clearly in real-world leadership as well, like Jacinda Ardern, former Prime Minister of New Zealand, who during her leadership, New Zealand recorded one of the highest citizen trust ratings in government globally. Madam Speaker, these are not traits of inferior leadership. These are traits of highly effective leadership and data and real-world outcomes that align. Women's leadership does not merely match men's in many cases, it produces better team performance, stronger ethical culture, and creates longer-term success. Premise 3. Underrepresentation of women in leadership reflects structural barriers, not a lack of ability. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Government may point to male dominance in leadership as proof that men are naturally better, but dominance does not equal ability. It often equals structural advantage. Study shows how countries led by women are 40% less likely to go to war, and they experience higher levels of peace and stability. This isn't just a theory, it's documented in global peace and governance data. Male governments, on the other hand, are statistically far more involved in military conflicts. But beyond the war, women also reduce corruption. Research from the World Bank and United Nations shows that countries with higher female political participants experience significantly lower levels of government corruption, while men dominate corruption cases globally, especially in political and corporate scandals. We can look at how Iceland has been consistently ranked as the #1 most peaceful and least corrupt country in the world for over a decade. Keeping in mind that Iceland's leadership has been heavily female-led, from its parliament having nearly over 50% women to electing the first democratically elected female president. These aren't just coincidences, they align with global pattern. When women lead, nations become safer, less corrupt, and more stable. So the opposition asks the members of the House, hasn't every war in modern history been started by male leaders? And look at the state of the world now. Is this really the better leadership we want to defend? Honorable members, the opposition stands firmly against the outdated and unscientific notion that men make better leaders than women. The opposition now yield the floor to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, opposition leader. We now have a 2-minute intermission before we resume. Thank you very much, Madam Timekeeper. My clerk of the house is now giving me a fact check here. Madam Opposition Leader, is it that you mentioned that all the wars were started by male leaders?
The exact words were, hasn't every war in modern history been started by a male leader? Keyword modern history.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay, while my clerk is fact checking that information, we can resume with the Deputy Prime Minister. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Honorable House and Madam Speaker. I am the Deputy Prime Minister Krishan Singh. I will inform you as to why men are better than women as leaders. The opposition mentioned that leadership is not gender-based and women outperform men. Now, this brings me to my point. Alignment with traditional leadership archetypes and expectation, where men often have an easier time being seen as leaders because many people still connect leadership with masculine traits. This idea is known as the think manager, think male phenomenon, was first identified by Virginia Skine, who showed that people tend to associate leadership qualities with men rather than women. This means that when people picture a leader, they often imagine somebody who is assertive, confident, and have dominant traits traditionally linked to masculinity. Because of this alignment, men usually face less pressure to act how they act. They can be direct and take charge without worrying as much about being judged harshly. Women, on the other hand, often feel they must balance being strong with being likable because assertiveness behavior in women is sometimes viewed as too aggressive or too unfeminine. This creates extra social pressure for women that men don't typically face. Research supports this pattern. A large meta-analysis by Broda and Jigalava found that men are likely to emerge as leaders in group situations. The reason was that men tended to show more dominant assertive behavior traits that people already expect from leaders. Women may have some skills, but their behavior doesn't always match with people's mental image or what a leader should be. These patterns also connect back to old ideas like the great man theory, which is historically described leadership as something naturally suited to men. Even though this theory is old, its influence still shapes people's view today, making it easier for men to be accepted as leaders and to gain leadership opportunities. Dominance in the key high status and male-dominated sectors. The overwhelming concentration of men in the highest level and high impact roles demonstrate their established, proven capabilities to navigate and succeed in the most competitive and complex environment. Men hold the vast majority of top positions, including approximately 90% of Fortune 500 CEO positions. As statistics frequently cited by organizations like InPower Coaching, which track the corporate gender gap, in political sphere, the global gender gap shows that women make up only about 11% of heads of state or government, a figure reported by the World Economic Forum as of 2023. The sheer number of men who successfully ascend to maintain these power roles is a testament to effectiveness of the male leadership model in securing and holding ultimate power. Furthermore, male leaders benefit significantly from established old boys network, which is described in research by Coach DeMello and Degree, provide informal support, social support, career sponsorship from senior managers, and access to viable resources needed to advance, reinforcing their dominance and successful presence at the highest level of power. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, opposition leader. So with the fact checks, modern history is from either the 15th or the 18th century, depending on where you search, to present. And during that period, we have Margaret Thatcher, Golda Meir, and Indira Gandhi. Those three female, they were all prime ministers. They were instrumental in starting wars in modern times. So we'll now have a 2-minute intermission before we resume. Thank you very much, Madam Timekeeper. We now resume with our Shadow Minister for Governance. You may begin.
Madam Speaker, members of the House, good day. As the Shadow Minister for Governance, I firmly reject the motion men make better leaders than women. Our position is simple. Leadership effectiveness is not dependent on gender. It is dependent on individual qualities, skills, and behaviors. Madam Speaker, the honorable member suggests that masculine traits make leadership easier, but modern leadership is not defined by masculinity. It is defined by competence. Studies from the Harvard Business Review show that men and women lead differently, but women score higher in 17 out of 19 leadership competencies, including initiative, communication, collaboration, and integrity, none of which are masculine traits. Madam Speaker, if leadership depended on masculinity, then companies with more men in leadership would perform better. But the opposite is true. According to McKinsey, organizations with women in leadership outperform male-dominated teams by 15 to 21%. So it is not masculinity that makes leadership effective. It is skill, emotional intelligence, and ethical behavior, traits that women demonstrate consistently. Having refuted the government's points, I will now present the opposition's case. The belief that men make better leaders than women is a stereotype and a bias reinforced over the years. Stereotyping is the attribution of characteristics to individuals solely based on gender, and it affects how women are perceived in leadership. According to a Nation Pew Research Center survey, on 7 of 8 leadership traits measured, women are rated either better than or equal to men. Half of adults say women are more honest than men. 38% say women are smarter than men. Women lead massively in compassion, creativity, and being outgoing. Women also receive higher marks than men for standing up for principles, working out compromises, keeping the government honest, and representing the interests of people like you. Additionally, a Harvard Kennedy School study in 2009 found that in a random sample of 640 voters, female candidates were rated higher than male candidates on considered judgment and showed no significant difference on other leadership qualities. Research published in the Journal of Applied Psychology in 2008 found that higher levels of gender diversity in top management teams were associated with higher relative profits, even after controlling for industry, size, and international status. Madam Speaker, these findings prove that the issue is not women's capability, it is bias. 51% say Americans aren't ready to elect a woman to high office. 43% say women in politics are held back by men. And 38% say women are discriminated against across society, including politics. People tend to conceptualize leadership in ways that match traditional male stereotypes, emphasizing decisiveness and ambition while undervaluing interpersonal sensitivity, even though these traits are crucial to effective modern leadership. Furthermore, the evidence is clear. When women are given equal opportunity, they perform just as well as men, and in many cases outperform them. Therefore, the claim that men make better leaders than women is inaccurate, unsupported, and rooted in harmful stereotypes. We firmly oppose today's motion that men make better leaders than women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shadow Minister for Governance. We'll now take a 2-minute intermission before we resume. Thank you very much, Madam Timekeeper. We now resume with the government whip. You may begin.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Speaker, honorable members of the House, I rise today on behalf of the government bench and the affirmative team to deliver our final rebuttal. Our key points is that men naturally fit the traits and expectations associated with traditional and crisis-driven leadership, particularly in situations that demand quick thinking, confidence, and decisive action under pressure. Men consistently demonstrate behaviors and qualities that align with societal expectations of effective leaders, giving them both practical and practical advantages in leadership roles. Firstly, men are statistically and culturally more inclined to take risks and make quicker decisions in high pressure situations. Leadership often calls for decisive action, especially when hesitation can lead to serious consequences. This willingness to take calculated risks helping leaders respond effectively to urgent challenges, manage uncertainty, and seize opportunities that others might avoid. Historical examples illustrate this behavior. For instance, Alexander the Great showed remarkable decisiveness and boldness during his military campaigns. He consistently made rapid, calculated choices even when faced with overwhelming odds. His risk-taking played a role in his extraordinary achievements, highlighting the impact of those traits in high-stakes settings. Secondly, societies often favor male leaders during times of danger or conflict. While leadership skills are present across genders, people tend to trust individuals who project strength, confidence, and assertiveness when uncertainty arises. In crisis, followers naturally look to leaders who seem capable of handling pressure, taking control, and making firm decisions. Historically, men have often filled this role as their behavior typically aligns with these expectations. This pattern has been observed across cultures and historical periods, suggesting that traits commonly associated with men, decisiveness, assertiveness, and confidence, aligned with the qualities people seek in leaders during critical moments. Thirdly, leadership stereotypes reinforce male traits as the standard for effective leadership. Qualities such as assertiveness, decisiveness, and confidence are culturally linked to traditional ideas of leadership, often associated with masculinity. These traits help leaders establish authority, inspire trust, and maintain order in environments that call for strong direction. While women can and do show these qualities, men have historically been socialized in ways that encourage that regular development and display of these behaviors. This alignment with societal expectations makes male leadership recognizable, and widely accepted, particularly in situations that require quick and decisive action. In conclusion, men fit traditional and crisis-driven development expectations because they consistently display traits like risk-taking, decisiveness, and assertiveness. These qualities are crucial in leadership roles that require rapid decision-making, confidence under pressure, and the ability to inspire trust and authority. Historical patterns and observed behavior shows that men tend to demonstrate these traits more consistently, providing a clear advantage in both perception and effectiveness. While leadership is not exclusive to one gender, the alignment of male behaviors with traditional and high-pressure leadership standards explains why men have historically excelled in these roles. Alexander the Great exemplifies how decisiveness and assertiveness can lead to great leadership, and this broader trend continues to shape how leaders are perceived and trusted today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Government Whip. We'll now have a 2 minute intermission before we resume.
Time is up.
Thank you very much, Madam Timekeeper. I'm getting a fact checked here from my clerk of the peace. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Government whip. Was it you that mentioned that men, 1 minute, that men and women show equal effective leadership skills? Or was that the shadow minister for governance?
I believe that was me.
Okay, so my clerk of the peace, my clerk of the house, sorry, my clerk of the house is now informing me that studies show that men and women, that is not so, that women are men and women are equally effective as leaders. Just all right. While I get my information correct, we'll now continue with the shadow minister for equality.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, members of this Honorable House. Good afternoon. Madam Speaker, the government's arguments rely heavily on stereotypes about masculinity and leadership. These outdated assumptions ignore decades of modern research showing that women are equally, if not more, effective in many leadership environments. I will address and dismantle the claims made by the first and second speaker, the honorable members of the government, Christian Singh and Atoria Murray. Men are naturally stronger leaders. Madam Speaker, this is false. Strength in leadership is not physical strength. It is emotional intelligence, communication, ethics, problem solving, and decision making. Global studies repeatedly show women often score higher in these areas. The Pew Research Center found women outperform men on 7 out of 8 key leadership traits, including honesty, compassion, intelligence, and organizational skills, leadership and listening skills in which women excel. Men are more decisive and confident. Confidence is a gender trait. It is a learned behavior shaped by socialization and opportunity. Research from Harvard shows that when men and women are given equal responsibility, their decision-making quality is nearly identical. Women are not less decisive, they are often given fewer opportunities to demonstrate leadership, which creates a false perception of inferiority. Men have historically led nations and companies. Madam Speaker, history reflects access, not ability. For centuries, women were legally banned from voting, owning property, or holding public office. Men led because women were prohibited, not because men were inherently more capable. The government is confusing privilege with talent, or even when men handle pressure better. This stereotype is not supported by research. A Harvard Business Review analysis of 7,000 leaders found women outperformed men in resilience, integrity under pressure, and maintaining calm in crisis. Research consistently shows women match or outperform men in leadership roles. Peer research shows that women rated better on honesty, intelligence, compassion, creativity, and organizational skill. Gender does not determine leadership ability. Opportunity does. When women are given access to leadership roles, they perform as well or better than men. Bias, not biology, limits women's advancement. The problem is perception, not capability. Women bring leadership strengths needed in the modern world. Today's leadership requires empathy, collaboration, communication, conflict resolution, creativity, and integrity. These are competencies where women consistently score higher. Modern leadership is transformational, not authoritarian, and women excel at transformational leadership. Real-world female leaders prove women lead exceptionally well. To support my points, Isadora Goyeneche managed mines, ensured workers' welfare, pioneered corporate social responsibility, and built South America's first hydroelectric plant. Her leadership was visionary, strategic, and compassionate. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is clear. Leadership is not determined by gender, but by character, competence, and opportunity. Throughout this debate, we have shown that the claim men make better leaders than women is based on outdated stereotypes rather than facts. It is simply the result of historic barriers, discrimination, and unequal access to opportunities, not because women lack the ability to lead. But again, representation is not proof of superiority. We have shown that women perform just as well as men when given equal chances. So while we respect the opposing team's points, the truth remains. The future of leadership is not male or female, it is equal, inclusive, and based on merit. Men are not inherently better than women. Great leaders are defined by their qualities and not by their chromosomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shadow Minister for Equality. Okay, so my clerk of the House now gave me the information to fact check, right? So I believe you mentioned that men make better, effective, or have better, effective leadership skills. However, studies have shown that men and women show equal effective leadership skills, though they may exhibit different leadership styles. I want to thank you very much for the debate, and we will have an 8-minute assessment time before we resume.